All right, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Land Disposition Committee is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via the telephone. And Mr. Chairman, if you can just take a roll call quote to enter into the meeting quorum, we can begin the meeting.
Okay. Christine, are you here?
I am here, present.
Okay. Brian Gardner, are you here? I see him. So I'm assuming he's present. Mr. Lawton, are you here?
Yes, sir. Here, present.
Who else am I missing here? Mr. Bishop is not present. I am present. Kyle, who else on the committee am I missing?
There's Paul Degnan from Recreation. I think he's not available for through April, I think is what it was. So he'll be back in March. So he's not around.
Okay. So I think I've got everybody covered, correct?
I believe so.
Any member of the committee that I missed, speak up now or?
Was Tom Barron coming?
Oh,
Kyle?
good point. Yeah, I haven't heard from Tom Barron.
Okay. Well, we do have a quorum to proceed, so let's do so. So the first item on the agenda is really the key reason for getting together today. It's the disposition of the Old Townhouse Road parcel identified as 99.52. We all have stuff in our packets. Everybody had an opportunity to review that. We do have a couple of people from the public, actually more than a couple. I noticed quite a few people from the public present. And I don't have a preference as to allowing them to participate and speak. If members of the committee have a desire to hear somebody or have any questions, please feel free to let me know. So in our packets, we received comments from both the Affordable Housing and the Water Department as town. Bear with me, I'm trying to, it's really not easy, just so you all know, to have a laptop in front of you and two screens behind you and keep grabbing the wrong mouse. This is, so bear with me if I'm looking at the wrong dang thing. So Kyle, we have the,
You want me to pull up the comments?
am I still here?
We can hear you, Jim.
Okay, Kyle, I seem to have an internet that is unstable, kind of like me. So can you kind of help us out a little bit here with this, so I try to figure out the,
Sure. Would you like me to pull up the staff comments?
that'd be helpful.
All right. So these were the staff comments that were forwarded to you guys. So I think you've all read them, so I'm not going to go through them all individually. But we got comments from DPW and Water, or some important commentary from them. And I believe Jeff Colby is here if you guys have any questions on those comments. We did get comments from Community Services from Amy Howell at the Recreation Department, as well as comments from Kelly Grant in Conservation, from Ed Centio in Finance, from Bruce Murphy in Health. And then as Jim referenced, we did have additional correspondence from the Affordable Housing. So I'll just pull that up real quick. So to summarize, there wasn't really a consensus staff recommendation for this parcel because there are some kind of competing priorities and interests in it. So I think that was kind of articulated to you through the staff comments. So we do have staff here, and I mentioned we have Jeff, we have Mary. If you guys wanted them to expand on any of the comments, I'm sure they'd be willing to do so. But that kind of sets the stage. See if I can pull up Mary's thing.
Everybody doing? Hey. How are you? I'm fine, Jacob. I came in to sign something.
Yeah, that's really what I got, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you needed any other information you wanted me to pull up.
I'm right here.
And we have lost the chairman.
Yeah. Is there another committee member who might be willing to step in until Jim's able to come and rejoin the meeting?
Sure.
He thought he would be at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And
Sure.
I think Kyle too, all the information that you've referenced that you just shared has been shared with the two parties that were interested in the parcel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think, Mr. Lawton, I know that Mr. Singer and Mr. McGann, I think, are here from the Colbia through Andrew Singer request. I see Mr. Vieira from Davenport. And Mr. Coburn, I'm not sure if you have an interest in the parcel or.
I am with Colbia as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think Jeff does. I think Jim is back now. So.
Oh, there he is.
Barely, like myself, it seems to be very unstable here, so feel free, Kyle, to take over when I go away again. And I've missed a bit of it, so
Hello, I'm
Yeah,
So-
Karen was just catching everybody up on who has received the information and who is present at the meeting. So we kind of just did a brief review of the staff comments that were received.
Right.
And noted that both Jeff Colby and Mary Wagon are present if you wanted them to expand on anything. So, so that's kind of where we're at.
okay, so you want to go through the members and ask if each one has any questions for any particular person, and then we can discuss it. So, Christine, do you have any questions for anybody?
Yes, I do. If as an advocate for keeping this as expansion of the well field, should anybody decide to build on this property, will the septic systems be an independent septic system? I think some of them were proposing a Title V, which would not be, a positive thing since it's right next to a well field. And it's also in, I believe, District 6 for the city. I firmly believe that if we're going to have a lot of building in an area, it should be in the areas that are going to be hooking up to the sewers first. So my question to each of the proposers is, what type of septic system are you proposing?
Okay. So let me comment first on that, and that is that whatever anybody wants to do to develop there is going to be controlled by rules and regulations that not only the town has, but the state and federal would have with regards to any development. So the protections would be put in place for any development, whether it be the town or an individual would have to be required to put the appropriate sewering in that's acceptable to the permitting. I would imagine. I think that would be a priority of any development, is to make sure that they have the appropriate sewage disposal.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Mary Wagon has her hand up. If
Oh,
just to
thanks.
acknowledge her.
Yes, please help me out with that because I can't see people's hands.
Right. There you go.
Mary
Hi.
Wagon is with
Hi,
the.
so Mary Wagon, I develop affordable housing for the town, and regardless of, whether you who you dispose the land to, if it was for development, you could stipulate a better than required waste disposal system. So, for example, if you did go with affordable housing and you could put in your RFP for land disposition a requirement that, nitrogen is removed from the system. That makes the development more expensive, but, the comments about the nearby well fields is important. So that's how, Christine, that could be addressed if you wanted to.
Thank you, Mary. Christine, any other questions?
I have some at the end for a summary
Okay.
later on.
Brian, do you have any questions, comments?
I would actually like to hear some commentary from Jeff as to water quality issues in the well fields and things of that nature. So if Jeff could give us some further clarification, that'd be great.
Okay. Jeff, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me. My comments that the DPW provided to the committee were rather general because we don't have any specific plans for well redevelopment in that area or treatment, but our interest was certainly to try to allow for maximum flexibility going forward. We do happen to know that we've been actively looking at property that's in close proximity to wells within the zone 2 for town acquisition. So I think that's certainly something the committee should be aware of when you're looking to dispose of properties. I want to make sure we're not working against each other and how we're dealing with that. But with that said, we do know that some of the wells in that area have contamination that we've had to take offline. And because we have properties that are contiguous in that area that are in the same general area as water properties currently, that might be a potential candidate for some kind of treatment facility in the future. As a lot of the public is well aware, we're hearing more and more of these days concerns about PFAS and other emerging contaminants are a very high concern of ours. And we do know that the wells in this general area are probably pretty good candidates in the future for having some kind of more advanced treatment than they currently have. So like I said before, our comments were very general in nature and trying to preserve flexibility in the future for not just future well development, but potentially a treatment facility to improve the water quality of the wells in that area. It is, and we mentioned in the comments, the well numbers that are in that area. And as you can tell, there are quite a few that are in that general area. So again, we wouldn't necessarily be citing a treatment facility for, one particular well, but, thank you, Kyle, for pulling that up. There are generally 6 wells in that area. And so it, again, is a good candidate for some kind of treatment facility if those wells needed to have their water more highly treated than we do currently, which we don't do much to our wells as far as treatment is currently. We have a good high quality water and want to keep it that way. So those are my comments generally. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So before I take it, Christine, let me ask a quick question so I don't forget it. Did you say that one of the wells in the area is already contaminated? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, well number 9, which is the closest well to this property, already has PCE contamination, and we've had that tested for PFAS, and it also has PFAS present in it as well. So what we typically do in those particular cases is we take that offline and we look for opportunities to treat that or blend it with other water. But DEP has now required that all water providers test for PFAS in all of our wells, not just ones that we know have a history of some concerns. And so we will have more information in the relatively near future about the water quality as it relates to PFAS and maybe some other contaminants for all of our wells. And we are just trying to protect, allow for maximum flexibility in the future because we may be looking at advanced treatment for some of our water
And do we know the source of that contamination?
We don't. We suspect that it's coming from kind of that White's Path area, but we don't know that for sure. And I've dealt with these contaminated water supplies in the past, and sometimes you'll never know because it's all water movement under the ground. But we do suspect it's coming from that that general area over by Route 6.
Okay, thanks. Christine, you had questions? Go ahead.
I just had a follow-up comment. I mean, here we have the water department looking for properties to expand their well fields, and this property has come to the town free because it came through a foreclosure. So all we would have to do is transfer it to the water department. You know, we're looking at another property over on the Higgins Crow Road, has an assessment of $1.1 million. This property came to the town for no cost. So, I mean, that's a big plus, especially since the water department is looking for properties to put wells.
Bob, do you have a question, comment?
The only comment, Mr. Chairman, is that rather than have presentations, maybe the first question is whether or not this committee feels, based upon the information we have, whether we should even proceed with a sale. If we do proceed with a sale, then, or recommend a sale, then we'd go through the RFP process, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe the basic question should be answered by us first, as a comment.
Actually, I kind of agree with that. You know, the purpose of this is the Land Disposition Committee, and the question is, do we dispose of it or not? And, you know, to me, there sounds like, just from the input from both housing and from, you know, the water department, that there's certainly use for the town. Now, whether we have to designate it anything, you know, as Christine had suggested, designate that land. If we're not using it and not developing it, then there's, to my personal opinion, no reason to designate it anything now that we may need to want to fix later on. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it would be my. The other interesting thing that I've noticed with this property is that, and Kyle, if you can put this up, it is 3 of 4. It's the map that shows the 10-acre lot and the neighborhood surrounding it.
Yeah.
Do you have that, Kyle?
Which map are you referring to?
This would be on, when you sent us a whole group, I think it's Exhibit 5. Old
Oh,
Town.
okay, on the, yep, okay. I see. Thanks, Christine.
So the only reason I want to point this out is because we look at that kind of J-shaped parcel to the left. It says town owned.
This is the one you're talking about?
There's one that isn't in color, but that shows but it will work. This will work. So this where it says parcels in question, right below that, that's kind of a funny shaped lot. That's town owned.
Kyle, it was in my packet. It's Mary. It was in my packet.
Yep, this is your packet.
Yeah, it's a
The
different
updated
map
one?
in that packet.
There you go, right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of maps here, guys, so I'm not sure which one you're
Right,
referring to.
sorry, I couldn't be more specific. But I think one of the important things to notice to whether we should, you know, when we're talking about do we dispose of a property or not, when we originally had discussions about what I refer to as that J-shaped town-owned parcel years ago, was access, and it was cost prohibitive to build out Old Townhouse Road. But if we're looking at that lot and now this 10-acre lot, maybe it does then become financially feasible to develop Old Townhouse Road to build not only in the 10-acre lot, but the other 12-acre parcel, and therefore creating, you know, housing at an affordable rate. So I'm not suggesting we do one or the other, but my point is that you now have an ability, if you're going to develop one, to develop the other.
Oh, yeah.
Which financially, it didn't make sense to do in the past, because that whole neighborhood is all privately owned roads, so they would control access, you know, off of Fenway and some of the others.
Mr.
So-
Chairman, I just want to know both Karen Green and Mary Wagon have raised their hands.
Okay, who wants to go first? Karen?
I want to just make clear too, tagging on to Bob's suggestion as to how the group may want to proceed, I just do want to make sure everyone understands that the request from Colbia was, I think, for a portion of the 10-acre lot, not necessarily the entire lot. So that may be part of your conversation as well.
So is Cobia the one for the nitrogen swap?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, may I interject? This is Bob McGann from Colbia.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm the director of real estate for the company. I did want to mention that we would be interested in an easement for the same amount of land too. Our intention is to keep it dormant and not to create any more nitrogen, obviously. But we could be, our interest could be satisfied with an easement, not necessarily a purchase, if that would be more acceptable to the board.
Okay. And Mary Wagon, you had your hand up. Actually, I could see it.
Excellent.
So yeah, so when I found out through, sending this plot of land out to, developers of affordable housing to see, would you be interested in this? And it talked about the access. One of them said that Mass Access could supply a mortgage to build out that road, Jim. So that was information we didn't have back in the day.
Mhm.
So just to let you know.
Or funds that probably weren't there back in the day.
Hmm.
Yeah, as my kids say back in the day.
Well.
So, Bob, did you want to say something?
Okay, if we want to move this, just for discussion purposes, I'd make a motion that the town not sell the property. And then we can, if there's a second, then we could open up to discussion, but at least get something on the floor, Mr. Chairman, so we could decide yes or no, if that's acceptable.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion not to sell the property by Mr. Lawton and seconded by Christine. I'll open that up to comments, questions, concerns from members of the committee. So, Brian, do you have any comments?
I don't have any concerns with that.
Christine?
I'm for the motion, yeah.
Okay, and you don't have any additional, and let's see, and Bob made the motion. Who am
Based
I-
upon the information that we received from the various departments. That was the rationale for it. I think Mr. Singer is looking for recognition, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we're in the middle of a motion. So rather than take comment from somebody in the middle of that motion, I need to take care of that first. And I'm sure that Mr. Singer wants to talk with regards to the motion, so I'm kind of trying to figure out how to make this happen. I guess I could.
Yeah.
There's no real, so go ahead, Mr. Singer, why don't you go ahead and make your comment and then we'll talk about our vote.
Fair.
Thank you,
Andrew.
Mr. Chairman. Andrew Singer, I just wanted to point out for the board that the reason Colbia has the request is because it's part of a redevelopment on Station Avenue that would close 2 old gas stations and replace that with one state-of-the-art gas station. The nitrogen and credit that we're seeking over just the 24,000 square feet of this larger parcel would enable that watershed improvement project to go forward, because the 2 gas stations right now are in the same watershed nearby. So keeping the land for town purposes, for whether it's housing or water protection, the remaining 10 acres, 10 plus acres would still be available. All that Colbia is seeking is either an easement or a purchase of a small 24,000 square foot section, which would be preserved through a nitrogen aggregation restriction. So it would be perpetually preserved for water preservation and open space. And it would allow the water improvement in the same watershed on Station Avenue where the gas stations are now. So as you consider this motion, while I understand the town has some legitimate desires to hold on to the entire parcel or having most of it, you could potentially, and I'm not sure how the process works for this, but you could potentially be willing to entertain consideration of disposing 24,000 square feet of it for nitrogen protection purposes through the process, and then you would still have the rest of the land for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Just so everybody knows, 24,000 square feet is a little bit more than a half acre of land. Is there a specific area of the site that they've designated, or?
Mr. Chairman, no, the section that we showed on the sketch plan just happened to be the eastern section. Legally or environmentally, any section could be there. So if the town was interested and wanted to run the section along the rail trail instead so that your land kept connecting up to the water district land already, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lawton, go ahead.
Chairman, one comment is my motion was not to sell the property. If at some point in the future the town wished to consider an easement, certainly this motion would not preclude that. I'm not advocating for that because I don't know many of the details, but I just would suggest that we don't sell the property for the reasons given by the various departments.
And an easement would achieve the same results for Mr. Singer's clients by.
At least that's what was said. I mean, it's possible.
And satisfy some of the concerns with regards to wellhead protection, because it's not something they would be able to develop on. They're basically purchasing it for conservation.
Possible.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments with regards to that? Okay, so we have a motion for us to not dispose of this parcel at this time. In a second, I will take a, hearing no other comments, I'll take a vote. Roll call. Christine?
Aye.
Mr. Lawton?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Aye.
And I think it's myself as aye. Did any other member of the committee join in the meeting that I'm unaware of? I
Nope.
don't see any. Okay, that being said, the motion carries unanimously not to dispose of this piece of property at this time. And it does still give the opportunity for Mr. Singer's clients to discuss the possibilities of an easement to achieve their goal as well. So I think we've kind of got a win-win here. In the meantime, it gives housing an opportunity to look more strongly at the lot and then come back with the selectmen to discuss whether, well field protection or housing or other options are available to them. So, okay, go ahead. So the next item on our agenda is the next steps with the land inventory process. Kyle, you and I had a quick discussion about that. You want to bring everybody up to speed on what we're talking about there?
Yeah, so we've kind of, now that we've dealt with the 9952 request, we've kind of made it through all the time-sensitive requests that we needed to get back to people on that the town had backlogged. So now we can kind of advance to the next stage of the land dispositions work, if you will, which is to take a look at our database of town-owned parcels and to try to kind of clean that up in a way that'll make it, more publicly digestible, if you will. Karen and I actually touched base on this today. Karen, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on this because she had a great idea that I think would be a good initial step. I don't know if you want to explain it.
No, I mean, my goal is to try to improve kind of how we go through this process and try to make things maybe a little bit more systematic. I had a conversation about the Wellfield land and the possible acquisition on Higgins Crowell Road with Mr. Colby. and thought that we should look at the town-owned parcel inventory in conjunction with the wellhead to see what's where and what's in the 400-foot radius, and then again, what's in the 1,000-foot radius, which is, my understanding is that's a recommended goal for land acquisition for water protection. But just that, and Kyle and I and Kelly Grant, we're going to go through the database and really try to hone in on the salient pieces of information that we think might help move things along with looking at one-off parcels.
So we have a town map that shows what parcels are actually town-owned. So we could use, a radius from each well field and see what those parcels are, and then look at them that way.
Absolutely.
I think importantly, obviously, is to put that database together in a user-friendly manner so that we can systematically go through everything and say, all right, these, this, and this are restricted for whatever reasons they may be, or and we can probably get through this list a lot faster if we have some kind of a
if I may, Mr. Chairman, or
Yep.
I think that you need to be systematic. It's kind of like two paths that we can look internally at our existing inventory and how do we want to handle things, but you also need to handle the requests as they come in. And kind of just along those lines, if I may go back to the parcel 9952, and with the committee's vote, would you also like to make some kind of recommendation to the Board of Selectmen? Because I think that we do have two parties that were interested in moving forward, and just in the name of keeping things moving, I think that it is ultimately up to the board. I could be wrong, and Bob or Jim chime in, please.
I'm not sure I identify when you said two parties, meaning housing and water?
No,
Or
we had two separate requests to
from outside of town.
dispose of parcel 9952, and just to be kind of clear in our response to those requests.
Well,
Go ahead.
my
Bob.
opinion, one has been taken care of, because if the town's not going to sell it, then that would be the end of that story, I
But
suppose.
Bob, is it up to the committee or is it up to the board of
Well,
selectmen?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
I guess
Well, ultimately, the Board of Selectmen are in charge of all properties in town. That's clear in the charter and in the bylaws. However, the Board of Selectmen created this committee to make recommendations. If we have no recommendation on it, saying, no, we would prefer not to sell it, then that is put aside. The other question concerning an easement, my view would be, yes, the selectmen would have to approve such an article for an upcoming special town meeting at this point, since it will not be on the annual. We would weigh in, I would assume, because while it's not total disposition, it is a use of the property that is not currently authorized. So I guess I would think the letter would go to the party that wished to purchase the property. The Land Disposition Committee is not recommending it.
Yeah, I guess to ask like the same question a different way, like you guys just voted right now to recommend, you are recommending no disposition of the property. Does that kind of end the process there? Or are we sending that to the selectmen for their consideration to make the final decision based off of your recommendation?
I would think that we would be sending it to the selectmen. The selectmen are the final authority
Right.
on all things Yarmouth. They're the policymakers. They're the ones going to decide. We could say, hey, we think you should sell it, but they could still say no.
Right. I think poor Jim froze, but I think, the selectmen could still say no, but I believe that, how does it get there? And that would be in some kind of report that this committee would give to the board. I don't think we want to do piecemeal. Maybe we do, but I would say no. We have a series of these things here in some kind of report. Here are the parcels that the board reviewed over the past 6 months, let's say, or whatever we want to use. And here are our recommendations. Not to do piecemeal, because
I gotcha.
then you'd be there every month
Yep.
or every week or whatever the heck it is.
And to that end, just to, while we're on the topic, we did submit a memo on behalf of the Land Disposition Committee on the 3 parcels that you guys did vote
Oh,
to
yeah.
recommend to dispose of at your previous meetings.
If I can comment on that specific thing Kyle brought up, Mr. Chairman, there is an article on the warrant, but I think it would be now removed because all 3 parcels, as I understand it, were acquired through tax title, meaning no action at town meeting. It simply is an internal action by the treasurer, I believe, a tax collector and or treasurer to take care of that.
Yep.
But
Christine, did you have your hand up?
I just have a question. Does that mean we're just keeping it as a town-owned piece of property, or are we going to consider it to transfer it over to the water department?
I would say at some point, I guess I believe the Board of Selectmen have the authority to make that designation if they choose to. I'd be a little careful about doing it too early because we've had other instances where we thought we were pretty smart in doing something, and then yet a new set of attorneys come in and say, well, and that may have been your intent, but that isn't what it says. And we've gotten involved on the West Yarmouth Road parcels as an example. I was here, I knew what we wanted to do. New town council says, well, maybe you did, but he has a different opinion on how the parcels. So yes, I think the Board of Selectmen can make those designations and then file a deed, because even in a tax taking, there has to be a deed filed somewhere at some point in time, I believe. And it could be designated that at that time by a vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you.
You're back, Jim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I picked up some of that, and I agree with you. You know, and I understand what you're getting at, Christine, but my comment is, be careful what we wish for. You know, once you start putting strings on things, those strings become ropes, which become hawsers, which become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more difficult to do. In our future, if we let's use this piece of property as one. If we designate it as housing and find out later on, oh wow, we really should have kept this piece of property for you know, well protection, even though they haven't built anything yet, it's been designated for housing. Now we got to go back and fix it. So to me, if we're not developing it, it's kind of acting as well.
I have another question. The assessment seems to be grossly underassessed if you compare it to the Higgins Crow property. Over on Higgins Crow, you have, I'm going to talk in round numbers, you have 10 acres worth over $1 million. And here we have 10 acres worth $160,000. They're both level, you know, upland type pieces of property. And there just doesn't, you know, I think we need to have the assessor explain why the assessment is so low on this property.
I believe it's an access issue, Mr. Chairman, that there's a very circuitous way you might get access to this 10 acres, as opposed to Higgins Crow Road, right on the main town-owned road, easy in, easy out, higher value. On this other property, I think Jim was correct that most of the roads in there are private roads where the town has no, well, we have access, but not something we could develop. I mean, the town can go to its own property over private roads, I'm pretty sure. But to have access for development, I think it would be more difficult. That may be, but I think it's a good idea to get the official, the official reason, but I believe that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
It looks like we did lose the chairman again. One thing I wanted to, oh, he's coming back. To pick back up what we were talking about on kind of the next steps of building that database, Jim mentioned the map of the town-owned parcels. So one of the first steps will be to try to combine that map of the town-owned parcels with the map of the foreclosure parcels. So we have one map showing kind of all the town-controlled properties. And then obviously with the, you're echoing there, Jim, with the wellhead stuff, we'll get that overlaid onto it as well.
Yeah, I moved to a different source here, so that might be helpful. And I apologize again, I broke up. Can I quickly go back on Christine? I had heard you mention with regards to assessed values on Higgins Crow versus this property. And I'm not sure what comments were made, but I want you to understand that it's not just size. There might be locational factors that affect the value. Maybe road frontage might be another factor. So
Bob just explained that.
unfortunately, it's not as simple. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not as simple as saying 10 acres versus 10 acres is the same. So
I thought it was access, Jim. We don't have to access, but I suggested maybe just ask Andy.
I'll look at the two as well, and it's most likely road frontage, and when you look at a parcel, what you can do with it, based upon the feasibility of the property, legally permissible, financially, all that other good stuff, physically possible. So, and that's why I would caution us about recommending a use for a property, because some of them really need a feasibility study to be able to make that type of decision. So Kyle, because I broke up, bring me back to where we're at.
Yep, we're just talking about kind of potential next steps with the whole building back up the database with a more publicly digestible format. So you mentioned that map of the town-owned properties. So I was just saying, I think a good first step will be to combine that map with the map of the foreclosed properties, which we have. So we have like kind of one map of all the town-owned properties. And then like Karen said, to get the well overlay on top of that, so we can kind of see which properties just aren't going to make sense to dispose of for that reason. So I think it kind of makes sense for staff to do some homework on our end to try to clean that up for you guys. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can kind of present you what we've gotten so far, and kind of go from there. I don't know if that's agreeable to the committee.
So not to throw anything else on the plate, but when you're looking at all that, not just wellhead protection, but can we identify properties that already have conservation restrictions on them?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we'll get all the we do have a database of all the town properties that does identify all the town restrictions. It's just messy right now, so it's a matter of cleaning that up.
Yeah, because once we look at that, that'll be able to eliminate a lot of stuff that we would may or may not have a discussion on.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Anything else on that subject? Okay, then I would ask review of past meeting minutes. Make a motion from somebody to accept the meeting minutes of March 9th that were in your packet.
I'll move.
I have a motion from Brian. Do I have a second?
Either one. Christine, sure.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion? All those in, roll call here. Christine?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Me? Aye.
That was easy.
Okay. You have upcoming meeting, and next I guess is May 11th. Is that going to be enough time for you to put things together to be ready for another meeting? Kyle?
That's a good question. Karen's shaking her head, so it sounds like probably no.
I don't think, I think it's better not to rush. We might be able to get the map done and certainly defer to the committee if you want to kind of do it iteratively, or if you'd rather wait for a more complete package, maybe postpone till after the town meeting.
And when is town meeting?
That is May 22nd.
May 22nd.
I think it's a Saturday at 9 o'clock, Bob, is that right?
Yes.
No. Oh yeah, 22nd is okay.
And is it indeed outdoors?
Yes.
Okay,
That's what the selectmen wanted and other groups, so that's what we're planning on. With the backup to be able to go inside with the permission of the school, which we already have, if it's raining.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Or worse,
a potential alternative date for the next meeting, if we want to stick with the second Tuesday of the month, maybe June 8th.
Okay. That should give you sufficient amount of time. We have no pressing articles in front of us. Nobody's looking to take any action prior to that. So that'll give you enough time to get things together and maybe spoon feed a little of it to us as you go. So
Yeah,
that when we get to
that'd be
that
great.
point,
Yeah, yeah.
overloaded. Everybody good with that?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Okay, so
Good.
let's schedule that date, Kyle. And if there's nothing else from any members or the public, I will accept the meeting adjournment motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Bob,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
me, aye.